Superman has always been one of the most loved superheroes in the world, but not every version of him connects with people the same way. Some tell his story with heart and hope, while others find it too dark or even confusing. So let's get into the details of why one Superman version truly works for audiences, and why Zack Snyder's Superman doesn't connect in the same way. Zack Snyder's Man of Steel is one of the most talked about superhero films in recent years, and the way it presents Superman has made fans argue endlessly. Some fans see it as a bold take that adds new depth to an old character, while others believe it strips away the very qualities that make Superman inspiring. When people discuss why this one works and Snyder's doesn't, they are asking what makes Superman resonate with audiences, and why some versions succeed while others leave viewers feeling cold. Instead of leaning on the cheerful optimism that often defined earlier roles of Superman, Man of Steel reintroduces his origin story in a darker, more refined way. Also, Snyder paints his world with shadows and weight, giving us a Superman who is burdened, isolated, and unsure of his place in humanity. Rather than confidently showing off his heroism, he is shown as a man struggling under the weight of responsibility. This version of Superman feels heavier, almost tragic, with Snyder granting his struggles too. Aside from this, Snyder's Superman becomes less of a flawless hero and more of a god wrestling with human doubts, giving a role that resonates with those who prefer their superheroes to feel grand and known. However, it also comes with drawbacks. Many viewers found Snyder's Superman difficult to connect with on a personal level. While the movie captures his strength and his godlike power, it often misses the warmth and humanity that usually draw people to Superman. Instead of being someone who radiates hope and inspires people simply by his presence, Snyder's Superman often feels distant and unapproachable. Audiences who grew up loving Superman as a bright, encouraging figure were left wondering why this version seemed so heavy, so serious, and at times even joyless. The things that made Snyder's Superman's version unique are how real he appeared, his mythic style, and his bold tone, and these were the same things that made it harder for some people to feel inspired. The Superman that works for most audiences is the one who carries an undeniable sense of hope wherever he goes. His most important power has never been just his strength, speed, or ability to fly. It is his optimism that carries. More importantly, Superman represents the belief that humanity is worth saving, even in its darkest hours. He has long been viewed as the ultimate immigrant story, a child from a distant, destroyed world who finds a home on Earth and chooses not only to live among humans, but to protect them. What makes this story powerful is not simply that he can save the world, but that he wants to, even when humanity does not always deserve his faith. That optimism, that unwavering belief in the good of people, has traditionally made Superman more than just a superhero. It has made him a symbol of hope. And Zack Snyder's Man of Steel movie goes as far as to explain that the S on Superman's chest means hope. However, the darker side of Snyder's storytelling often makes it difficult for that hope to fully break through. Instead of the bright, inspiring presence that many associate with the character, this version of Superman feels weighed down by tragedy, doubt, and the heavy responsibility of his powers. Although some viewers understood that even the strongest hero can struggle, while others saw it differently. Another reason is Snyder's use of action and moral dilemmas. The battles in Man of Steel are massive, destructive, and visually spectacular. Snyder doesn't shy away from showing the scale of Superman's power, especially in the final fight against General Zod. But the end of that battle is what truly split audiences. Superman kills Zod to protect innocent lives, snapping his neck in a moment of desperation. For Snyder, this was a crucial moment that showed Superman accepting the terrible responsibility of being Earth's protector. For others, however, this was a betrayal of the Superman they knew. Traditionally, Superman avoids killing at all costs. He finds another way. He inspires by showing that violence and death are not the only solutions. By crossing that line, some viewers felt that Snyder's Superman lost a part of his moral core, and with it, a piece of the hope he was meant to symbolize. Also, the tone of Snyder's movie plays a huge role in why they continue to divide audiences. His filmmaking style is visually rich, dramatic, and undeniably stunning, filled with slow-motion shots and epic imagery that feels larger than life. This makes Superman grand, although every moment is part of a myth unfolding on screen. However, this same tone can be very overwhelmingly serious. Many critics argue that Snyder's Superman movies lack the sense of humor, joy that could balance out the darker themes. Instead of seeing a character who carries hope and light, audiences are often presented with a Superman who carries the burden of existence as if it were a tragedy. Especially for fans who enjoy mythic storytelling and want Superman to be a savior. It makes Superman feel like a god among men, facing challenges far beyond the ordinary. But for those who look to Superman as a source of inspiration for children, families, and everyday people, Snyder's version often feels too distant, too grim, and not relatable enough. The lack of levity makes it harder for audiences to see themselves in his struggles or to feel uplifted by his victories. This stark tonal difference between mythic grandeur and everyday inspiration is one of the biggest reasons many people argue that Snyder's Superman doesn't work as well as the brighter, more hopeful interpretations that came before. Another reason is that Snyder's movies shift the focus away from Superman himself. In Batman and Superman: Dawn of Justice, for example, much of the story revolves around how the world reacts to Superman's existence. Politicians, reporters, and even Batman himself are shown questioning whether Superman is too dangerous, too powerful, or too godlike to trust. This approach can be fascinating because it forces us to think about how humanity would respond to someone like Superman, but at the same time it dilutes Superman's role as the central figure of hope. Instead of showing us who Superman is and what he inspires, Snyder often shows us people who are afraid of him. The result is that Superman becomes less of a character to connect with and more of an idea to debate about. What usually makes Superman's stories succeed is the grounding influence of his relationships. His adoptive parents, Jonathan and Martha Kent, give him values and a sense of belonging. Lois Lane gives him love, support, and someone who truly understands both sides of his identity. These relationships turn Superman from a distant god into a relatable person who just happens to have extraordinary powers. Snyder includes these elements, but his serious tone and pacing sometimes stop them from fully blossoming. The warmth of the Kents, for example, often feels overshadowed by the weight of Clark's burden. Lois, while present, doesn't always get the chance to shine as the partner who makes Superman human. Without these emotional anchors shining brightly, the character can feel colder than he should. Superman's appeal is not only about battles, villains, or his powers, it's about what he represents. He is an idea, a living reminder that people can rise above fear, anger, and despair. The best Superman stories remind us to hope, to believe in others, and to keep striving for a better world. Snyder's Superman wrestles with these ideas, but his movies often frame them in terms of doubt, skepticism, and moral conflict. To some fans, this made Superman feel more complex and interesting, while others think it made him confusing, harder to admire, and less of the beacon of light he was meant to be. When Superman becomes a figure of uncertainty rather than certainty, his role as a cultural icon starts to fade. In addition, Superman needs to feel larger than life, but also deeply human. He is powerful, but his greatest power is compassion. Snyder gave him grand weight and significance, but sometimes at the expense of his warmth and hopefulness. The versions of Superman that truly work find a way to blend both sides. He merges the myth and the man, the power and the humanity, also the grand and the optimistic side too. Christopher Reeve's Superman from the 1970s captured this balance by being both inspiring and approachable. The animated versions of Superman have often done the same, showing him as someone serious when he must be, but always compassionate and filled with belief in others. These are the qualities that make people believe not just in Superman, but in the idea of Superman. So when fans say this one works and Snyder's doesn't, they are pointing out the difference between a Superman who feels like a distant god and a Superman who feels like a friend who lifts you. Snyder's movies are ambitious, visually stunning, and filled with thoughtful ideas. They are not failures, but they are not the Superman that most audiences want. They give us a Superman burdened by power, trapped between worlds, and struggling with moral choices. For some, that makes him richer. For many others, it makes it harder to love him. What has always kept Superman alive across decades of stories is his ability to inspire everyday people to be better, to hope more, and to believe in the possibility of good. When that inspiration is lost, even the most spectacular battles cannot replace it. And that's why Snyder's Superman is a fascinating experiment in reimagining an icon. It works for people who want to see a mythic figure caught in tragedy, and it doesn't work for people who want to feel uplifted and inspired by a hopeful hero. Both sides are valid. But the reason Superman has endured since 1938 is that he is more than his struggles. He is hope in action. He is a testament that humans, with all its flaws, are worth believing in. That is why the versions of Superman that succeed are the ones that let the light shine through the darkness, reminding us that even in the hardest times, we can all be a little more like Superman. Do you think Superman still inspires people if he is no longer the significant hero he was meant to be? Share your thoughts in the comments. Also, do not forget to like the video and subscribe.